Hello, you malty. Mordor malt mates. Yeah, good one that. Thanks to Jerry BC for the malt mention, which always, well, at the moment, introduces a whisky review or another quality spirit review here in the Whisky Bothy, somewhere in the middle of the Irish Sea, in a fictional, mist-laden sort of Lord of the Ringsy type environment. In which you will find an orc like me, Ralphie, who basically spends a lot of time nosing and tasting and talking about whisky and, yeah, other alternatives. I have a whisky for you at the moment, which it's a novelty whisky with a serious message. And this is Ralphie Review 1057, by the way, just to put it in the timeline. Now, cue the squeaky cork. Let's get it a bit wetter. Wet the cork and it'll squeak more when you open the bottle. Ah, lovely. This is Ardnamurchan Midgie. It's an on-age statement whisky bottled at 48%. And if you want to know more about it, a very, very useful feature is the barcode. No, it's not. It's a QR code. Not a barcode. There is a barcode beside the QR code, but this is a QR code which will take you to the official Ardnamurchan Distillery website, where you can find out more about this whisky. I'm finding it more interesting than I expected, because when I had a visitor, I don't encourage it because I'm an introvert, but when I did have a visitor recently, I gave him a dram of this and said, "And what do you make of this?" And of course I said nothing about it. And this person, being a have-a-go hero, decided to try and pinpoint the age, the region, the style, the casks, the lot, which is always entertaining because if you're like me, you're going to get it wrong most of the time, and there's no shame in that. It's perfectly acceptable, because so long as we're having fun and we're not getting too deep and tense about it. So he had a nose about it, and he says, yeah, well, that's, look at the colour, and he's busy looking at the colour and says, that's a natural colour, which it is. That is certainly a natural colour. And he nosed it and he says, oh, that's fresh and fruity, and it's light fruit, and it's a little bit sherbety, and there's melons, and there's apple and green apple, and he says, I think that's Irish. Well, he would say that, being an Irishman. He says, that's a really good Irish whisky. That must be one of the new Redbreasts. And this is the tricks that our minds can play when we don't have the bottle reference, when it's invisible, when the bottle's been covered up and we only have the dram to go on. This is it naked and exposed. There's no marketing, there's no messaging, there's no points of reference apart from the smell and the taste, which are the two references that we should always and must only ever be invested in. Right. And this is where this whisky becomes really interesting, because my pal was right. Sean was absolutely spot on when he said that it was an Irish whisky, because on the nose, everything about it is Irish. That freshness, the green notes, the vibrancy and complexity of the spirit itself, which you only ever get from a properly made spirit from malted barley, or perhaps there could be some unmalted barley involved. We never know the full facts, no matter what we're told with the very best of intentions. But the nose alone is fascinating, because this is young. I wouldn't put this any more than 5 or 6 years old. So what you're getting is a spirit-driven experience. And the purpose of the cask has been simply to moderate the spirit rather than to add cask influence, which would only happen when it's been matured for a little bit longer. It could only be a year. It's amazing the difference a 1 year can make in a bonded warehouse, in a young spirit. It's just like young men and women, suddenly they grow up. With whiskies, they remain young until suddenly in 1 year they start to take on that cask influenced maturation, where the cask and the wood and the oak starts to exert its influence. And of course, just to remind you, because I need to remind you, if it's a good cask, it'll be a good influence. If it's a bad cask, it'll be a bad influence. Always, without exception. With Ardnamurchan Midgie, we're really seeing showcased how a particularly well-made spirit, which has got a lower alcoholic yield but a high flavour yield. Within that flavour, there's the complexity of the grain itself. And when a good quality grain is used, you get more complexity. This is the situation here. So you get these green notes, the euthymol, the mint, the wintergreen, slight wintergreen notes. By the way, if you can hear a chainsaw in the background, which you probably can, because I certainly can, there's been a storm on the Isle of Man. Massive storm, Darach surged through. It's taken down a lot of trees. So the local woodsmen are busy cutting either the fallen trees up, or importantly, the trees that have come half down and are lodged in other trees. They've got to be brought completely down because they remain a hazard, a fall hazard. I'm completely changing the subject here, but I'm just going to go for it anyway. Never go out in a forest when there's an intense storm raging, because we presume when a tree is falling down, when a large tree is coming down, that we'll hear the snap and the splinter of wood. This isn't true. Sometimes you get that, but when a tree is uprooted, in other words, many trees, mature trees, will actually fall over from the root ball itself. You won't hear a thing because the root has been loosened to the extent with the windrock in the trunk of the tree that it's softening up, and all you might hear is the hiss of small roots separating the last remaining thing that holds the tree in before the tree comes down. But more often than not, a tree will come down suddenly in complete silence, and the first you'll know about it is the crash bang wallop when it hits the ground. Hopefully it won't hit you, because if it does, you'll probably be dead, particularly if it's a direct hit. The weight in trees is phenomenal. Right, I've got that out of my system. Back to the whiskey review. Just sharing. This is really bottled as a novelty, but there's so much going on here as relates to Ardnamurchan's now very well entrenched reputation for the quality of what they do. You will find out there that many folk are going on about the 10-year-old, the first 10-year-old bottling, and quite rightly so. I'll be reviewing it in 2025. It's a great whiskey, but everybody else is talking about the 10-year-old at the moment, so I'm focusing on the Midgie. Also, the price of the Midgie, it's very affordable. For the quality that you're getting, for the strength that you're getting, this is, frankly, a great result on the nose alone. And we've not even got to the taste yet. I'm still in the nose. Something that I'm picking up from slow smelling, and you need to take your time with this, is chamomile. I really don't get chamomile. You know the herbal tea range? Chamomile tea, lemon verbena, that sort of area of nosing. And we don't get it from tea because you've got to smell the tea bag dry to get the aromatics of these herbs. But here it is in a glass of whiskey. Phenomenal, steady, long legs, great coat line, big fat drops that you would usually see in a 15 to 20-year-old single malt. Here you are getting it in something that's probably no more than 5 or 6 years old. I want to just tell you right now, never judge a whiskey by its age statement. There are seriously good, young, fresh, signatured single malts. The question you need to ask yourself in identifying them is simple. Which distillery? One reason that the new generation of Scotch single malt small craft makers has established themselves and had tolerance within the whisky scene for people buying younger whisky than they'd normally be comfortable with is the quality of the make, the quality of the yield from the grain, and the quality of professionalism in actually making the damn thing. We are now seeing a wider and wider gulf between some of the other whisky makers out there, primarily big companies, who are producing their whisky simply on economy and volume without regard to the substance and calibre of their make. It's not important to them because, frankly, I get it where they're coming from. It's not important to their market, to their primary passive consumer, who's oblivious to this. But we're not oblivious. And when we do our whisky journey, we find the subtleties, the intricacies, the delicacies, the sophistication, the refinement, simply because we've developed through our self-appointed apprenticeship. We've developed this awareness. I'm going to cover this more in an extras because I feel that already this review's drifting away from what I should be talking about here, smell and taste. So let's really go for it now. Smell. Barley sugar, cereal notes, savoury biscuit, slightly fusile, beautiful natural grain fusile green notes, strong in the green notes, mint, euthymol, wintergreen. They're delicate, but there's more than this. There's the savoury herbs going on here. Sage, oregano in particular. This is more an aquavit rather than a whiskey. It's a mature aquavit. If this was France, it would be aquavit de barley, right? This is the calibre. This is what you get from small stills, and really, really well made spirit. I better taste it. Neat. Very palatable. Enormously palatable. The green notes. It's not frightened of the sensation intensity. We're getting lovely savoury notes. We're getting slight sour notes, savoury sour, and in amongst it, bitterness, natural grain bitter. It's not that long ago that distilleries were trying to engineer this out of whisky. New distilleries, brave distilleries and competent distilleries are engineering it back in. Because I can assure you, with age, the actual substance of the grain becomes more and more necessary to generate something interesting that's worth paying for at a higher age statement. I'm going to add some water now. Hey, you know I always do, but I'm going to surprise you with this one. Particularly Ralphie Regulars. What can I get this? 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops. Right, 5 drops there. Very, very little water. Usually I add a lot of water, but I want to retain the intensity of the flavour because it's so well done. So what have we got here? A few drops of water already on the nose. Younger whiskey reacts faster, develops faster, gives back feedback faster. you can immediately smell the lightness but intensity of it. This is becoming slightly sweeter in the nose, slightly more brulee. The maturation has been primarily ex-bourbon casks, fresh casks, real good quality casks. We're getting that vanilla note, but it's not immediately obvious because of the substance of the flavour coming from the grain distillate itself. Honestly, I could bump on for a lot longer than this, but I'm going to conclude now. Taste. Intense, sweet and sour, rich, creamy, barley, brulee, shortbread, oatcakes. That oatcake savoury note that you get, that kind of floury, crumbly note, it's in there. And it's just excellent. This, with a bit more pot water, could really pass for a very high-end dry white wine. It's got that aperitif quality to it. A delightful, affordable, underrated, because it's overlooked. People are saying, no, I'm not interested in this. I'll go for McLean's Nose, or I'll go for the 10-year-old. But see, the Midgie, in its own right, it's a superb whiskey. And the most enjoyable thing is, it's young. It's young and quality. And this gives us simply a different facet of what Scotch whisky can be. This is the beauty of it. I'm not noticing a lot of Scotch mist appearing in the glass, but there's a simple reason for that. I've not even added enough water to trigger it, so that's fine. 83 out of 100. To get something this young, so substantial and defined in its own right, really is worth talking about and worth reviewing. Go find Maltmates. Ardnamurchan is a classic example of a new generation of single malt Scotch whiskies, which Scotland absolutely needs without question, in order to hold on to its reputation as the world's best destination for making whiskey. And there you have it. I'll see you soon for review 1050 extras, in which I'm going to continue with this and tell you more about it that I haven't included in this video because it's gone on a bit as it is.